Hello and welcome to today's SGIA webinar, ADA Signage Tutorial. My name is Dan Marks. I'm SGI's Director of Content Development, and I'll be the moderator for today's program. On behalf of SGIA, I'd like to welcome you and let you know that our webinar system allows you to ask questions through your computer. So if you have questions at any time, even now, feel free to submit them and we'll get to them at the end of the formal presentation. Before we get started too, I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Zachary Hauser. Morning, or hello, afternoon, Zachary. How are you doing?
Hello, doing good.
Good, and he is with Vision Engraving Systems, and he'll be our presenter today, and he's going to really talk about ADA signage, but then also give us some knowledge into the production side and some of the requirements therein. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Zachary Hauser. Zachary.
All right, how's it going, everyone? Today, like Dan said, my name is Zach Hauser from Vision Engraving and Routing Systems, and I am an application engineer over here. We're going to be going over ADA today. So a few things we'll be talking about is what is ADA, what does it stand for? Really the big opportunity that ADA presents, the different types of ADA signage. I'm going to be going over a quick reference guide to get you guys started so you make sure that you're in compliant with all your guys' ADA signs. And then, of course, we're going to be doing the ADA demo and actually making an ADA sign. And then we'll open it up to questions at the end of it. All right, so ADA, what does it stand for? ADA stands for American with Disabilities Act, and it just prohibits the discrimination against individuals with disabilities. So it's intended to make people with these disabilities just their lives a little bit easier when they're doing things like accessing buildings. They want the signs to have a high contrast, tactile letters, and then the actual Braille itself with the beads for better readability. Signs that must comply with the ADA are exit signs, room-specific signs, directional signage, any sign that identifies or informs about an accessible feature of the facility is going to need to comply with ADA. And with regulation being the driving factor, there's just a huge opportunity right now. So, I mean, the things that you're able to go after is architectural buildings, schools, hospitals, things like that. I mean, some of these jobs alone can pay for the machine. So just a little bit of background about what ADA is. Now we're going to talk about the ADA signage. So what type of ADA signs do we have? We have all sorts of different materials. Today we're going to be doing it in plastic, just ADA plastic. But we do have things like this where we're actually using sign brackets, and we're going to be able to go ahead and put the ADA in there. This makes it nice, you know, a little bit of an exciting way to put your ADA sign together if you don't want the normal, just plain men's blue restroom sign. But once again, I mean, these are a huge thing. You can do all these signs. You can do room signs. You can do restroom signs like this. This is more of a basic one. This is definitely going to allow you to comply with the ADA regulation. I mean, it's a bright white on a blue background. That's definitely in compliance. We got the normal text here, and then we got the Braille below it. So that's a great sign, a great example. We have aluminum signage. So aluminum is going to be a little bit different than what I'm showing you here today. I can talk about it and the differences a little bit later as we go through the demo. Another thing is different ways to make the sign. So throwing up different ways. This right here, this is reverse engraved. So this is using a type of material that you engrave on the back and then you paint it. And then we're able to get this cool QR code here. We're also using applique for the text. So this still gives us our raised feature. It's still going to be it's going to be within compliance for ADA. And then we have the ADA text down here. So, I mean, you can get very creative with the signs that you're doing. You don't have to just have a basic looking sign. If you do have a very nice hotel, you have anybody that kind of wants a little bit flair to their signs, you can't get too carried away. You can do some pretty awesome stuff. You just want to still make sure that you're within compliance. So here's another great one where, you know, we're using a couple different features. We have we have 4 pieces here. So this was actually printed on and glued. It was adhesive was used to stick that on. This was reverse engraved. We have a nice piece of trim. If you can see, there's a little wood piece of trim. We have the applique, and then finally we have the Braille beads set in right here. So just want to give you guys a couple ideas of different things that you can do. Like I said, you still want to make sure that you're within compliance. And when we talk about the quick tips, I'll tell you a little bit more how to stay within compliance of that. So the quick reference, if you guys all have that, I'll pull up and go over a little bit over that. So first we're going to be talking about the, let's see, the text. So the extrude height, we want the extrude height to be 1/32 of an inch raised above the rest of the sign. You want that so if you come up and fill the sign, you're going to be able to fill the text. Font and style, you don't want to get too crazy with the font or style. I mean, sans serif is going to be a great font to use, but once again, if you look in that quick reference guide, you're going to see kind of an example of a font not to use. Something that's going to be crazy and have swirls or be cursive, something like that, you're not going to want to use for your ADA sign. Case. So all tactile signs must be uppercase. The signs that provide direction of information about functional space and overhead signs may use upper and lowercase, but that really is just for those directional signs. If you're doing like a min sign, anything like that, you're going to want to worry about that case and use uppercase. Text height, text width, and text stroke. All this stuff you want to look in. Hopefully when you're using a software, your software is going to be able to do a lot of this stuff for you. So in the Vision software, you're able to type it out, and it's going to allow you to stay within compliance. You're not going to be able to go too small or too big because the features just won't allow you to do that. If you're not using it and you're doing it in Illustrator or any other program, just be aware that you need to take a look at some of that stuff. Another thing is going to be the minimum spacing and max spacing between each text. Make sure you keep that in mind. So if you're kerning out the text and you want it to look nice, just make sure that you go ahead and take into account for what the compliance, what the regulation says for your spacing. One of the biggest things is the finish and contrast. So you're not going to want to do, you know, gray letters on a black sign. You're going to want to do white letters on a black sign. You're going to want to have a high contrast. And that way, if somebody is visually impaired, when they look at it, they can tell, like, hey, right away, they can see at least an outline of the text. You can do your best to have it be where they can see as much as they can. The Braille text placement, that's another one. So 3/8 around the text, you want to make sure you're clear of any other object. So that's a big one right there. Dot base diameter. The dot base should be 0.059 to 0.063. So when we talk about this, we're talking about the little bead that we get out of the Braille inserter. So this bead right here, they sell them in standard sizes. So if you buy them from Johnson's Plastics or these other places, you're going to be able to get the bead that's within compliance. The only other thing you're going to have to worry about then is your drill size, and you want to make sure that you have a 0.060 drill. And that drill is going to allow us to drill the right size hole so we get a press fit and that bead is pressed into place. So the dot height, we got to drill a certain depth to get the proper dot height, because when we fill it, we don't want it to be flat. We want that dot to be protruding out of the ADA sign just a little bit. And that's going to be between 0.025 and 0.037 thousandths of an inch. And really what that is just setting our drill depth. So as long as we have that drill depth set right, we're going to be in compliance there. The big part with setting the depth is that you have to go deep enough to where it's going to hold the ball, but then also you don't want to go too deep because you have to fill the Braille text. So that's our quick reference. Once again, if you guys have any questions on this stuff, the quick reference is, I mean, there's tons of information out there. I'm always open. So after, you can get my email and ask me some more questions. So today what we're going to be doing is this contour cut ADA sign. So imagine this being like a room sign on a hotel, something like that, where, you know, we're going to be going and doing a ton of these room signs. So we got, you know, say 123 different rooms. Right now what we're going to do, we have this set up. So this was our printed material that we had printed on a flatbed printer for us. And we'll show that. And it's got these registration marks on it. It's got 1/4 inch registration marks that we're going to be using to align this. And we use our camera system. So, I mean, a lot of other machines, you can do this exact same thing on. If you don't have a camera system on your machine, you know, you can find other ways to line it up, or you can also just do regular signs like the bathroom sign I showed you earlier. Things like that, you're going to be able to follow the same process. It just won't be using the registration thing. So keep that in mind if you already have a machine that you're looking to use. A lot of the different settings and stuff on the machine is going to be a little bit different on your machine. But generally, typically how it works is going to be doing the same thing. There's just a different place on your machine to do it. Okay, so now that we have that set up, what we're going to first do, I'm going to show you how to zero this, and we're going to be setting the drill tool. So right here, we're going to start from scratch. I'm going to take this tool out. And then what we are going to do, on the Vision machine, we have a little pendant here. So we are going to just jog over here. We're going to go down to the area that we're going to be putting these beads in. And then I want to jog down, and let's see if I can zoom in on this for you guys so you can kind of see here what I'm talking about. There we go. So I'm going to come down here, and the first thing I want to do is drop this pin tool. So this is the Braille pin that is going to be inserting the beads, and what I want to do here is set this. So I got to set the surface so I know where the bead needs to be placed. So I'll jog down a little bit, and I'm going to go slower now, and I go down, and there is a pin. It's kind of hard to see right now, but there's a pin right back here. I'm looking for this pin, and I just want this to be flush. When this is flush, I know that I am at the proper height for that Braille bead to insert nicely. So right there, I'm going to press set surface, press enter, and when that raises up like that, I know it took the setting, and then I can go up a little bit more. So we'll jog this up. Okay, and another thing I am going to do now, let's see if I can get back in view of this. I'm going to go ahead and take, this is our micrometer right here. So like I said, a lot of different machines will have a micrometer in a different area. I'm just going to back it out and just set it to 0. So this is kind of just zeroing this whole thing out for me. So set that to 0. That's at 0 right there. And then when I go down, now what I can do is raise this up. And now we're going to be setting that drill tool. So we want to set the depth on the drill. So we'll go down just to our material, just so we know where that material is. I'm going to go ahead and take the cutter wrench, or the drill, sorry, and loosen that up. So right there, we're going to loosen that up, and then put it in there. Let's see, so we got that in there. Let me kind of zoom in and focus a little bit so we can see the top of this, see what I'm doing here. So it's just right here. All I'm going to do is loosen this back up. And since that nose cone is all the way on the material, when I go down and drop that all the way down, I'm at 0. So that tool is not coming out any farther than the nose cone. And now when I come back up, let's see, still in view there, perfect. So now what I can do is take this, and I'm going to rotate this around to 0.041. So they're 5 thousandths, 10 thousandths, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and 41. So all that did was drop my tool 41 thousandths, so we get a 41 thousandths depth to our hole. And then I can go ahead and press go to home, and that's just going to go back to the home location for us. Okay. So now once that's done, all I got to do is send the job over. So like I said, your software is going to be a little bit different. How you send that job over is going to be a little bit different. And you have the registration marks clicked. And that way, when we send it over, the machine knows to look for those registration marks. Okay, and let's see if I can come out a little bit. And that all that is doing right now is the machine is using the camera system to find the registration marks. And then it's going to turn the spindle on. That's going to go exactly where we want it to, so let's try and get back there. And that just drilled the holes, like I said, at 0.01 or 0.041. So now when I drop this down, it knows where that surface is because we set it already. And the pendant waits for me to lower that, and when I press start, this is where the magic happens. Those little beads are pressed into the locations. And the ADA Braille, it's as easy as that. I mean, it's just a press fit, so you drill the hole. Everything about Braille is, you know, I hear these guys out when I'm at trade shows and stuff, and everybody's like, oh, well, it never gets all of them, or, you know, it just doesn't do a good job. I would say on any machine, the crucial aspect of it is getting it set up right. So, I mean, your depth, things like that are just so crucial for having everything work right. Another thing is going to be your offset. So in most machines, you're going to have an offset from here to your drill. That offset, if it's off by just a couple thousandths, that can screw you up. You're going to get inconsistent beads. You're going to get some that press in, some that don't. So one thing to look at when you're doing this is take the time. Take a little bit of time to learn it. You know, mess around with it. Set up your machine. go do a whole line of Braille, do a whole line of it, and make sure you get good at it, make sure your offset's right, make sure your depth's right, and then you can go on to your sign. You're going to drive yourself nuts if you try and do like a whole hotel or something and you haven't set the machine up right. Okay, so once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out here. And now we can talk about moving this tool out. We'll take this tool out, and we're going to move on to the next step of the process. And once again, once you have these tools set up, I mean, imagine you are doing a whole hotel room or a hotel, and you're doing a whole school or something like that. You're going to want to set these tools once, and then be able to pull the same tool and then slap on another sheet, do a whole sheet. The only thing that's going to change, you know, maybe is your number. A little bit about the sign might change a little bit, but for the most part, you're going to be able to use the same depth. It's going to be a lot of the same material and a lot of the same tools. Okay, so now what I am doing is pulling the next cutter, which we're going to do the applique. So this is how you get these numbers on there. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in, that tool. And then once again, let's go ahead and zoom in on that location. I'll jog over to that location so we can see what we're doing. Okay. Once is this it? Lift that up. Okay, so now we're going to jog down to the location. Okay, so this part, there's a couple different ways of setting your depth on this. What I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this piece of applique. All this is a piece of plastic with an adhesive backing. And I'm going to first make sure that it fits where I want it. And this is a little bit wide. I don't want it to be on the printed area. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take some scissors and just trim this down just a bit. And if you cut little squares like this, this just keeps you from wasting a whole ton of material. So, I mean, you could go slap a whole sheet on, but then you're going to be wasting all that material. Okay, next thing is I'm going to take off the adhesive backing. Take that off here and slap that right above the text where I know that text is going to go. And then what I like to do is I'll back this off by 3/1000. So I go, let's see, 1, 2, 3. And all that's going to do is how I set it up. It's going to make it go 3/1000 past the material. So then when I drop this, I'm going to take this tool and I'm going to get a part of the nose cone on there. But I don't want the tool touching, so I just want it down, and then I can zero that, and then that's going to set the tool right at the thickness of that material. And then when I come back up, I can go back 1, 2, and 3. And I know seeing it like that can be a little confusing, so if you do have questions, feel free to, like Dan said, write those down or just remember them, and then you can ask me a little bit later on what exactly is going on there. Okay, so now that that's set up, I will move the spindle out of the way. And then I can take this protective backing off. And once again, I left that on there when I did it just to give me a little more depth to get it through here. This is another thing, the depth of the applique. I mean, on your first sign, if you do a couple practice runs, you're going to be able to test out, see what depth works for you. You want to get at the right point where you really don't want a crazy outline around the whole thing, because that can you know, sometimes not look so great. But also you want to cut through the material, and there's a little bit of adhesive on that backing that you want to cut through. So you do want a nice clean look to it. So now once again in the software, I'm just going to go ahead and send the job over. Make sure we have everything set up for raised elements. So we are going to be cutting the raised elements on it. Okay, and once again, it's going to be using the camera system first to register it. And all this stuff. So the first thing you would do is the Braille beads first, the Braille text. So imagine doing all the Braille text first, not just one sign. We're just, for demo purposes, we're doing the one sign. But you can set the Braille beads, walk away from it, have the machine do all that stuff, and then come back, and then you're going to do the applique, and then you're going to come back and contour cut the whole thing out. Okay, so once that's done, what I like to do is I will usually get a brush or even a toothbrush, just a brush to kind of clean that out there. You want to make sure that all the stuff is out of there, all the gunk is out of there. And then what we're going to do is we take our picking tool, we make sure everything's set up right, and we just go ahead and be very careful to not mess up the sign. We pick an edge and we just weed that off. And then as time goes by, those things are going to really set in there. It's time-sensitive adhesive, so the longer it sits on there, the harder it's going to be to get those things off there. I can go back and clean this up just a little bit, get some of that adhesive and stuff off of there. And once again, I mean, a huge part of that is going to be making sure that you have the depth set right, so you go past it. If you have something where there's a whole bunch of gunk buildup around it, then you're going to want to go a little bit deeper. That means the adhesive isn't really cutting through. It's not cleaned up. You're going to have a lot less post-processing if you get the depth right there. If you don't go deep enough, then you're not going to be able to weed the thing off, and your numbers are going to come off with it. So that's definitely another problem. Okay, so the last thing here is we're going to want to contour cut this whole thing out. So I zoom out a little bit. Let me go back into this and change that tool. So one last time. Now this tool's set. So we're good with this tool. So I put this back over, and I can pull from there later if I'm doing more signs. I'm going to grab one more tool. And this, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that I just did for that last tool, but instead of the applique, I'm going to use another piece of the sign. So let's see. If you just have a spare piece of material, anything like that will work. So I have another spare piece of the material that I'm going to be using. I have this here, and I'm going to jog over to that location. And once again, let's see. There we go. And we'll show you how to set this. And once again, I like it probably 3,000. So I'll back off 1, 2, 3, and that just gives me a little bit depth past the material. So then I get a nice clean edge, and I don't have an onion skin or anything to pull off. And I mean, if you do it and you have an onion skin the first time, you can go throw some more depth in there, and you'll be fine. So we'll jog all the way down to that, just where it's resting on the nose cone. Let's see if I can go up just a little bit so you can see. And then right here, all I'm going to do is zero that tool out again. I'm going to loosen that up and go all the way down to where it's touching. And then when I go back up, I'm going to make sure that I reset this. So go 3,000 back. 1, 2, 3 clicks. And that's back where it was. So now all the tools are set up. So once you're running this job, you can just go with it. So move that out of the way, and then let's try and zoom back into where we were. Now we go ahead and send it over once again with our registration marks, and we're going to send this to contour cut that whole thing. So we're using engraver's plastic cutting, and when we do that, it's going to use the camera system to find those marks, and then contour cut the thing out. There we go. So right now it's moving around using the camera system. The spindle just turned on, finding the exact location, and now it's going to go cut that out. So now this is, like I was talking about, you know, having the perfect depth. That's a little bit too shallow, so I would go back in there. I would dial in the cutter. I would go probably maybe 2,000ths more, because there is just a tad bit of an onion skin. This is not going to be a problem. And I mean, afterwards, we can go back and clean this up and just take another piece of plastic and clean that up. But if you were doing a big job, you know, that would drive you nuts, having to post-process and clean all these up. So once you get it dialed in, you have it set, you press go, you pop it out, you have nice clean edges, and you run with it. So on that note, this is our ADA sign right here. I'm going to leave it open to questions, or actually give it back to Dan. And Dan, if we want to go over the question.
Sure. Definitely have some questions here. Let me open up that area here, just a sec. So, Zachary, this is kind of a general question, but in terms of, let's say, the customers who are looking for ADA signage, how is sort of servicing those accounts different than somebody who's just looking for straight ahead signage or something that doesn't have that ADA component? What is the best way to serve those customers?
You know, that's a great question, and I think serving the ADA customers is definitely a little bit different. If you can study up on the compliance and the regulatory side of it, and you understand it, and you can be the go-to person that these people can trust. I mean, this is a big thing that, you know, architectural firms, even schools, hospitals, places like that, somebody's been tasked with the job to go set up this ADA signage and to acquire the ADA signage and work with a vendor. If you can be the person that is the expert on it, that's a huge opportunity for you to jump in and say, hey, you know, don't sweat too bad, take a deep breath, talk to me about it, let's work together and figure this out. And it's just that ADA opportunity that I talk about, that's it right there, is where you can be the expert and help them out. And it's just great working with the customer to, you know, be the expert and show them what you need to do with the ADA signage.
Yeah, it seems to me that one of the best things to do is educate yourself on how to use, how to produce those things, and make sure that you, as a producer, understand not only what the customer wants, but what they need if they need to be compliant.
Definitely, definitely. And you know, a great way to get into it is, you know, a lot of people are contracting out their ADA signage, so they're already starting to learn about the compliance, they're learning about the regulatory side of it, and they're not yet quite doing it themselves. I see a lot of shops that are doing that. They start outsourcing so much that they finally realize, like, hey, it just makes sense. A lot of these people that I see coming in and buying our machines, they'll be outsourcing so much, and then they get this one huge job where they're like, you know, it would pay for the machine. So it's one of those things where there's so many people out there that need ADA signage, and you're not only talking about your retail customers, you're also talking about your other sign shops, the people that do need contract work. So it opens up that other revenue stream that with the network, being around sign shops and being in that network, you have a whole lot of people probably around you immediately that need outsourcing or need ADA signage.
Okay, and then we do have a question about pricing. And I know we can't really discuss prices, nor is it really a relevant discussion, because a lot of times it's that's more decided on the region you're in or who your competition is. But in terms of pricing ADA compliant signage, how would it be different than pricing just regular signage using similar technologies?
I would say, you know, it's not a whole lot of different than the regular signage. I would say that right now the demand for ADA signage, there's just a huge demand for it. So you are able to get premium prices for ADA signage. It is a very, very lucrative business to get in. And if you do a little bit of research online, and I mean, you just Google some of the ADA signs, and I'm sure a lot of you guys already have, and you can see what, I mean, a simple min sign is going for, some of these pre-built signs. If you start getting with custom signs, you're doing metal signs, you're doing brass signs, I mean, you can get well up there with huge profit margins.
Sure. I would think that the inclusion of the Braille segment allows for somewhat of an upcharge because the labor and the materials are higher.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, the skill to do it, to produce the Braille, it takes, you know, either different software systems, or it takes somebody that really knows what they're doing to be able to do that. So I think it's a lot more than just the material cost itself. That is a big one, but then all the other stuff around it also.
And who generally would you say is the customer in these types of signage things? Obviously, the example you have, let's say, is for a building that has multiple rooms. A lot of signs are people working with a contractor, a construction contractor, or a architectural firm, or a designer. All of those.
And there's, I mean, there's also other people as small as, you know, mom and pop shops, or that are in retail locations where they have certain rules that they have to comply with, and it's they their responsibility to comply with those. Sometimes the realtor that they're renting from might put that off on them and say, hey, you got to have compliant signs. Sometimes it is just they want signs that match with the whole other aesthetics of their company. So it can be anywhere from, you know, a huge company, or it can be from architectural firms, things like that, to a mom and pop small bakery or something like that. Your customer base is just ranging from all over the place.
Okay. And if I guess with your company or any of the other vendors out there who have similar types of equipment, what trends are you seeing in terms of who's purchasing the machine? Are you seeing fewer sign shops and more people who are bringing some of that in-house? Are you, and what are the questions they're asking that what are they looking for, I guess, is the bigger thing. What's the need?
Yeah, I would say a big one is you know, a lot of these trophy and engraving shops, they're trying to find new revenue streams. They're trying to find new ways to kind of make money, and they see ADA as a huge opportunity. That's one that's bringing it in. There's yeah, sign shops in general, they're doing a lot of outsourcing. I see a lot of people outsourcing, and they get their start doing that, and then they do transition to do it in-house. I mean, doing it in-house, it saves you so much time. It saves you a lot of money. It saves you from having to worry about the person that you're outsourcing. You know, what's their schedule look like? Are they going to be able to deliver the product? All that stuff kind of goes away when you have a machine in-house. And the trend I would really say is doing it more in-house and kind of getting to the point where you can do it in-house.
Great. And then is there we have another question here. Is the raster method better than other technologies such as UV for ADA signage? I know I've heard about people producing Braille using UV.
Yep. So that's a great question, and I get that all the time. There are a couple different methods to do Braille. This one is the approved way. The other way is like using some other systems, printing it on. It does give you a different look. I would definitely say if you go to SGIA and you're going to be at the trade show, stop by our booth, stop by some of the other booths, check out the different types of Braille. The ability to do it extremely fast using the method that we're doing is just awesome. Like I said, I mean, once we set up the tools and stuff, if you're doing sheets of plastic, you're doing a hotel room, and you press go, you can go drill all the holes and walk away and go do something else. So you have your guy that's doing signs. He can walk away and then go, you know, set up another job or set up something else. You come back to it. You don't have to do it by hand. So another thing was a while ago you had to do all this, or insert the beads by hand. So now automatically inserting the beads is another huge time saver. So like I said, I know there's a couple different ways out there. I would say the best thing is to go look at those different ways, see what you think, get the feel of it, and definitely give us a chance to show you this live and kind of feel the texture of the sign and feel the quality of the sign.
Okay. Well, that is all the questions I have. So first, thanks so much for the presentation.
Definitely.
And before we sign off, I wanted to just jump in and urge everyone online with us to get online today and go ahead and register for the SGIA Expo in Las Vegas, October 18th through 20th. It's going to be a huge event. If you're interested in signage, or interested in digital printing, in industrial printing, in numerous printing applications and markets, it really is the place to go. It's going to be an amazing show this year. So mark it on your calendar, October 18 through 20, and jump on there. Registration is free through September 19th. Get your hotel room lined up, get that airline taken care of, and we will see you in Las Vegas. So with that, thank you so much, Zachary.
Hey, thank you. We're excited to see all you guys out there at SGIA.
Great, and we will see you online again soon. Have a great day.